Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the story of the island. And to the actual story of the island. We've done the origin stories of the characters of Soar AK, FlashBack, Death-Defier, Deku, and Molly. And now it's time for the story of the island. The story that would change them all forever. Let us begin. One day, on an island, Soar AK traveled through the sky. He flew directly across towards the dark being he had heard about previously in his origin story, while he was on the island in the sky, in another place, a dimension. He went to Weeping Woods. It was now day. Soar AK saw a dark being staring at him from inside a giant tower. On the outside of this giant tower were walls. Soar AK was astounded by this, in a way. Soar AK flew above the tower, landed on the roof. Soar AK tore open the roof. He opened it. He landed on a platform. He broke the platform and landed on the floor of the tower. He saw a dark being. This dark being stared at him. The dark being wondered who this was, most likely. Soar AK stared at the dark being. The dark being had a hood on, purple hood. His skin was an extremely dark purple, and they wore a cloak with bird feathers on the neck of it. The cloak was purple and dark, and had little remaining of it. He wore a belt, and there were more bird feathers being held by it. He had metal gauntlets on his hands as well, and he had light purple eyes, and his face could not be seen. It was just the light purple eyes, and a dark face that could not be seen. Soar AK stared at the dark being, wanting and gone. Now it switches over to FlashBack's perspective of things. FlashBack stared at a being that had entered his tower he had built as he stayed here, on the island. The being wore a black hood, with the white lines on the edges that flowed with energy, and a robe that was completely black, with white lines at the edges as well. The being had white eyes, and had no face. The place was completely covered by darkness. The being looked at him in a serious manner. Now it switches back to Soar AK's perspective of this. Soar AK attacked the dark being, pushing him against the wall of the tower he was in. Soar AK stared at the dark being. The dark being stood up and stared back at Soar AK. The dark being kicked Soar AK, pushing him back. Soar AK looked at the dark being from below. They were both in a way studying each other, astounded by their powers. Soar AK stood up and looked at the dark being once again. They were both knocked down, which had never happened to them before. They've never been knocked down at equal power by beings that had equal power. Soar AK attacked FlashBack again, the being that was dark, and FlashBack, the dark being, re-attacked. They attacked each other over and over again and again and again, punches and kicks, when finally Soar AK stared at the dark being and stopped fighting. Soar AK stared at him for quite some time, and then Soar AK flew into the sky, leaving the tower in the same hole he had left in the tower when he entered. He wondered, how did he, the dark being, get me to the point where I had to fight back with actual strength of mine? Because usually, Soar AK does not have to fight back with strength. He will win. But he had to give it his all in this way. It now switches to FlashBack's perspective of this. It also was the same for FlashBack, how he was confused on how he had to fight back with almost all of his with almost his strength against Soar AK. With his strength against Soar AK. FlashBack stared at where the being that entered his tower was. He didn't know what to think. The being had forced FlashBack's hand, pushed him down. FlashBack was furious. He couldn't believe that there was someone who could do that. Someone that could actually beat him almost, at least, someone that could push his strength down when he believed there was no one else, and knew that there was no one else at first. He believed he was unstoppable, that no one could match his power. FlashBack decided his new goal would be kill this being, Soar AK, at all costs.